I used to think I had a sleep problem. Every night followed the same pattern. I would turn off the lights, put my phone face down on the nightstand, close my eyes, and wait for sleep to come. But instead, my mind would wake up. Not just a little. Completely. Conversations from 3 years ago. Mistakes from last week. Tasks for tomorrow morning. Random questions I didn't care about all day suddenly became urgent mysteries at midnight. And the strange part was this: the more desperately I wanted to sleep, the more awake I felt. One night, around 2:17 a.m., I found myself staring at the ceiling, mentally replaying a meeting that had happened months earlier. I remember thinking, why is my brain doing this? That question stayed with me. At the time, my life looked normal from the outside. I worked a regular office job. I lived alone in a small apartment. My days were predictable. Wake up. Work. Gym a few times a week. Dinner. A little television. Sleep. At least, sleep was supposed to happen. Most people around me assumed I was doing fine. Honestly, I assumed the same. I told myself I was just busy. But there was something I didn't notice. Throughout the day, I never stopped moving. Every empty moment got filled. Driving? Music. Lunch break? Phone. Waiting in line? Scrolling. Walking into work? Podcast. Even during quiet moments, I was consuming something. I thought that was normal. Maybe it was. But little by little, I began noticing something strange. The only truly silent part of my day happened when I got into bed. And that's when my thoughts became unbearable. Night after night, the same battle repeated. I'd tell myself not to think. Then I'd think about not thinking. Then I'd get frustrated. Then I'd think about being frustrated. Hours would disappear. The more I fought my thoughts, the louder they became. One evening, after another exhausting day, I stopped by a small coffee shop near my office. I wasn't meeting anyone. I just wanted to sit somewhere that wasn't my apartment. A man around my father's age sat at the next table. We weren't talking. At least not at first. But after a while, he noticed me rubbing my eyes and laughed. "Long day?" he asked. "Long night," I replied. He nodded as if he understood immediately. "Mind won't shut off?" I remember staring at him. "How did you know?" He smiled. "Most people who are tired talk about work. People who haven't slept talk about their minds." It was such a simple observation. Yet it felt oddly accurate. We ended up talking for almost 30 minutes. He wasn't a therapist. He wasn't a sleep expert. He was just someone who had struggled with insomnia years earlier. Before leaving, he said something that stayed with me. "Your thoughts aren't keeping you awake." I almost laughed. That sounded ridiculous. Of course my thoughts were keeping me awake. What else could it be? But he continued. "Your fight with your thoughts is keeping you awake." I didn't fully understand what he meant. Not yet. A few days later, after another sleepless night, I remembered that conversation. So instead of reaching for my phone, I searched for something different. Not sleep tips. Not supplements. Not productivity hacks. I searched for meditation. To be honest, I was skeptical. Every article seemed to promise peace, clarity, or enlightenment. I wasn't looking for any of that. I just wanted 6 uninterrupted hours of sleep. Still, I decided to try. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and followed a simple guided sleep meditation. The instructions sounded almost too easy. Notice your breathing. Observe your thoughts. Don't chase them. Don't stop them. Just notice. I remember thinking this was impossible. Observe my thoughts? That was exactly what I was trying to avoid. But I kept listening. A thought appeared. Tomorrow's meeting. Normally, I would immediately start planning. Instead, I simply noticed it. Then another thought arrived. An embarrassing moment from years ago. Again, I noticed it. Then another. And another. Something unexpected happened. The thoughts kept coming. But for the first time, I wasn't arguing with them. I wasn't trying to solve them. I wasn't trying to win against them. I was just watching. The experience felt strange. Almost boring. And that's what surprised me. Because many of the thoughts that seemed so urgent suddenly looked different when I stopped interacting with them. They were still there. But they had less power. I eventually fell asleep. Not instantly. Not magically. But naturally. The next morning, I woke up feeling better than I had in weeks. What fascinated me wasn't the sleep itself. It was what I had discovered. The thoughts hadn't disappeared. The anxiety hadn't vanished. The unfinished tasks still existed. Yet somehow they no longer controlled the entire night. For the next several weeks, I kept practicing. Some nights were easy. Others weren't. There were evenings when my mind felt like a crowded airport terminal. Thoughts arriving from every direction. Worries competing for attention. Random memories demanding explanation. But something inside me had started changing. I began noticing a pattern. Most thoughts weren't actually problems. They were invitations. An unfinished conversation. A future worry. A hypothetical scenario. Each one quietly asking me to engage. And for years, I accepted every invitation. Immediately. Without realizing it. A thought would appear, and I would follow it down a rabbit hole. 10 minutes later, I wasn't lying in bed anymore. Mentally, I was in tomorrow's meeting, last year's mistake, or an imaginary future disaster. Meditation helped me see that process. Not control it. See it. And seeing it changed everything. One particular night stands out. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. A major project at work wasn't going well, and I felt responsible. The old version of me would have spent hours rehearsing solutions. Instead, I sat quietly and focused on my breathing. The thoughts continued. What if the project fails? What if everyone notices? What if you're not good enough? The questions kept coming. But then I noticed something unexpected. Underneath all those thoughts was a feeling. Fear. Not the fear of failure itself. The fear of judgment. The fear of disappointing people. The fear of not being enough. For years, I had been wrestling with thoughts. But the thoughts weren't the real issue. They were messengers. The feeling underneath was what actually needed attention. That realization changed the way I viewed myself. And other people. Because once I saw it in myself, I started noticing it everywhere. The coworker who constantly over-explained mistakes. The friend who always seemed busy. The neighbor who worried about everything. Everyone appeared to be fighting invisible battles inside their own minds. And many of those battles looked remarkably similar. Fear. Regret. Uncertainty. The desire to be accepted. The need to feel safe. Human behavior suddenly made more sense. Not because people were irrational. But because most of us spend our lives reacting to thoughts without realizing we're reacting. That understanding created something unexpected. Empathy. When someone became defensive, I wondered what fear might be underneath. When someone acted distant, I wondered what burden they might be carrying. Even when I judged myself, I became a little gentler. Not because my problems disappeared, but because I finally understood what was happening. The mind wasn't my enemy. It was trying to protect me. Just not very efficiently. Every thought was an attempt to prepare, predict, solve, or prevent pain. The problem wasn't having thoughts. The problem was believing every thought deserved my full attention. That distinction changed my nights. And eventually, it changed my days too. Months later, I realized something remarkable. The best part of sleep meditation wasn't sleep. Sleep was only the side effect. The real benefit was learning that I didn't have to chase every thought that appeared in my mind. I could notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass. Just like a car driving by outside a window. Still there. Still real. But not something I needed to follow. That idea sounds simple. Yet it transformed the way I experienced stress, relationships, and uncertainty. Because life never became quieter. The world remained busy. Responsibilities remained. Unexpected problems still showed up. But my relationship with my own mind became different. And that difference mattered. Today, I still have nights when sleep doesn't come easily. I'm human. Some evenings are harder than others. But when my mind starts racing, I no longer see it as a fight. I see it as a signal. An invitation to observe rather than react. To listen rather than wrestle. To notice rather than control. And strangely, that's usually when sleep arrives. Not when I force it. Not when I chase it. But when I stop turning every thought into a problem that needs solving. Maybe that's the hidden truth many of us miss. We spend so much energy trying to silence our minds that we never learn how to sit beside them. What if the goal was never to stop thinking? What if the goal was simply to stop following every thought wherever it wanted to take us? Because sometimes the most peaceful sleep doesn't begin when the mind becomes quiet. Sometimes it begins when we finally realize it doesn't have to. And if you've been lying awake at night, listening to your thoughts race through the darkness, maybe the question isn't how to make them disappear. Maybe the question is, what would happen if you simply let them pass by?